Stress is not your enemy. The real enemy is your inability to control it. Every day, people lose their focus, energy, health, confidence, and dreams because they allow stress to become the master of their minds. Stress steals your sleep. Stress steals your clarity. Stress steals your future. But here's the truth. You cannot eliminate stress from life. You can only learn to master it. The strongest people are not those who live without pressure. The strongest people are those who remain calm while pressure surrounds them. Today, you will learn how to stop feeding stress, stop obeying stress, and start controlling your mind. Remember this phrase: stress is a signal, not a sentence. And once you understand that truth, everything changes. Like, share, subscribe now. Stress is not the problem. Read that again. Stress is not the problem. The problem is what happens when stress enters your mind and takes control. The problem is what happens when you stop thinking and start reacting. The problem is what happens when fear becomes your advisor. Because fear is a terrible advisor. Fear exaggerates. Fear predicts disaster. Fear takes a small challenge and turns it into a mountain. And if you allow it, fear will convince you that you are powerless. But you are not powerless. You have a choice. That is the key. You always have a choice. Not a choice about every situation, not a choice about every obstacle, not a choice about every difficulty, but a choice about your response. And that changes everything. Repeat this with me. I do not control every situation, but I control my response. Again, I do not control every situation, but I control my response. One more time. I do not control every situation, but I control my response. That sentence alone can change your life, because most people spend their lives fighting things they cannot control. They fight reality. They fight circumstances. They fight the past. They fight uncertainty. And while they are busy fighting things they cannot control, they completely ignore the one thing they can control: their mind, their focus, their response, their attitude. That is why stress wins. Not because stress is stronger, but because people surrender before the battle even begins. The moment something goes wrong, panic takes over. The moment pressure appears, fear takes over. The moment uncertainty arrives, worry takes over. And then something dangerous happens. The problem becomes bigger inside the mind than it is in reality. A small challenge becomes a catastrophe. A temporary setback becomes a permanent disaster. An obstacle becomes the end of the world. And all because the mind has lost control. Understand this. Most people suffer twice. First, they suffer from the actual problem. Then, they suffer from worrying about the problem. The first suffering may be unavoidable. The second suffering is optional. Think about that. A bill arrives. That is reality. Then the mind creates 10 imaginary disasters. That is unnecessary suffering. An exam is approaching. That is reality. Then the mind imagines failure, embarrassment, disappointment, and humiliation. That is unnecessary suffering. A business challenge appears. That is reality. Then the mind imagines bankruptcy, failure, and hopelessness. That is unnecessary suffering. The event is one thing. The story you tell yourself about the event is something completely different. And often the story creates more pain than the event itself. That is why controlling your thoughts matters, because your thoughts create emotions, and your emotions create actions, and your actions create results. If your thoughts are weak, your actions become weak. If your thoughts are disciplined, your actions become disciplined. Control your thoughts, control your stress. Say it again. Control your thoughts, control your stress. One more time. Control your thoughts, control your stress. That is the key. Not controlling the world, controlling yourself. Most people spend years trying to control external circumstances, but successful people master internal circumstances. They master focus, they master patience, they master emotional discipline, because they understand a simple truth. Calm is a skill. Calm is not something you are born with. Calm is something you build. Calm is something you practice. Calm is something you earn. Just like strength, just like confidence, just like discipline. Nobody walks into a gym one time and becomes strong, and nobody faces one stressful situation and becomes calm. Growth requires repetition. Mental strength requires repetition. Calm requires repetition. Every stressful moment is an opportunity to train. Every difficult situation is an opportunity to practice. Every challenge is a mental workout. And most people fail that workout, not because they are incapable, but because they never train. They expect calm without practice. They expect discipline without effort. They expect confidence without preparation. Life does not work that way. You become calm by choosing calm repeatedly. You become disciplined by choosing discipline repeatedly. You become mentally strong by choosing strength repeatedly. Pressure is temporary. Remember that. Pressure is temporary. The stressful situation will pass. The difficult season will pass. The uncertainty will pass. The challenge will pass. But the habits you build during pressure can stay with you forever. That is why pressure can be a gift. Most people hate pressure. Strong people use pressure. Because pressure reveals character. Pressure reveals habits. Pressure reveals weaknesses. Pressure reveals strengths. Pressure shows you who you really are. And once you see that truth, you have an opportunity. An opportunity to improve, an opportunity to grow, an opportunity to become stronger. Imagine a trader who loses money. One trade goes wrong. The market moves against him. Immediately fear enters. Immediately stress enters. Immediately panic enters. Now he has a choice. He can stay calm or he can react emotionally. Most traders react emotionally. They panic, they chase losses, they abandon their strategy, they make reckless decisions, and suddenly one small loss becomes a massive loss, not because of the market, because of emotion, because stress took control, because fear became the decision maker. But a disciplined trader understands something important. The loss is temporary. The emotional reaction is optional. So he pauses, he breathes, he thinks, he stays calm, he follows his system. And because he remains calm, he avoids turning a setback into a disaster. That lesson applies to everything, not just trading. Life rewards calm thinking. Life punishes emotional reactions. Calm thinking creates powerful decisions. Emotional thinking creates mistakes. Never forget that. Calm thinking creates powerful decisions. Emotional thinking creates mistakes. When emotions rise, intelligence often disappears. People say things they regret. People do things they regret. People destroy opportunities. People sabotage relationships. People create unnecessary problems, all because they reacted instead of responding. You have a choice. That is the key. You can react or you can respond. Reaction is automatic. Response is intentional. Reaction is emotional. Response is disciplined.
Reaction creates chaos, response creates clarity, and clarity changes everything. The next time stress appears, pause. Do not rush.
Do not panic. Do not assume the worst. Pause. Take a breath. Slow your mind. Observe your thoughts. Ask yourself one question. What can I control right now? Not tomorrow, not next month, not next year. Right now. Focus on that. Because stress grows when attention focuses on what cannot be controlled. Peace grows when attention focuses on what can be controlled. That is a universal principle, and the people who master this principle become nearly unstoppable. They stop wasting energy. They stop feeding fear. They stop strengthening anxiety. Instead, they strengthen discipline. They strengthen patience. They strengthen resilience. And slowly, stress loses its power. Not because life becomes easier, but because they become stronger. That is the transformation. That is the goal. That is why this chapter matters. Because stress is not defeated by wishing. Stress is defeated by training. Stress is defeated by awareness. Stress is defeated by discipline. And every time you choose calm over panic, you win. Every time you choose focus over fear, you win. Every time you choose action over worry, you win. The mind becomes stronger every time it chooses calm over panic. Remember that. The mind becomes stronger every time it chooses calm over panic. And strength compounds. One decision becomes two. Two become 10. 10 become a habit. And habits become identity. Soon, you are no longer someone trying to stay calm. You become a calm person. You become a disciplined person. You become a resilient person. Stress still appears, but it no longer controls you, because now you understand the truth. Stress cannot control a disciplined mind. That is the takeaway from this chapter. Stress will come. Pressure will come, challenges will come, but you have a choice, always. You do not control every situation, but you control your response. And when you master your response, you begin to master your life. In the next chapter, we will go deeper into the habits and daily practices that build lasting emotional discipline. Because mental strength is not created in one moment. It is created one decision at a time. The difference between average people and mentally strong people is not the absence of stress. It is the management of stress. Everyone feels pressure. Everyone feels fear. Everyone feels uncertainty. The difference is what happens next. Average people allow emotions to become commands. Strong people treat emotions as information. That distinction changes everything. An emotion is a signal, not an order. Fear says, pay attention. It does not say, quit. Stress says, something matters. It does not say, panic. Anxiety says, prepare. It does not say, run away. But most people misunderstand their emotions. They obey them. They follow them blindly. And then they wonder why life feels out of control. You have a choice. That is the key. You can listen to emotions without surrendering to them. You can feel fear without becoming fearful. You can feel stress without becoming stressed. You can feel pressure without becoming overwhelmed. That is emotional discipline. And emotional discipline is more valuable than intelligence during difficult times. Many intelligent people fail because they cannot manage emotions. Many ordinary people succeed because they can. Think about a student preparing for an important exam. Two students sit in the same classroom. Both have the same amount of time. Both have access to the same books. Both face the same test.
One spends hours worrying. What if I fail? What if I disappoint everyone? What if I'm not good enough? What if everything goes wrong? Notice something. Those questions produce no solutions. They only produce stress. The student becomes exhausted before even opening the textbook. The mind becomes trapped, energy disappears, focus disappears, confidence disappears. Now look at the second student. This student also feels nervous. This student also feels pressure. But instead of feeding fear, they focus on action. What chapter should I study first? What can I improve today? What is the next step? Those questions create movement. Those questions create progress. Those questions create results. The situation is the same. The mindset is different, and the mindset changes everything. Focus on solutions, not suffering. Repeat that. Focus on solutions, not suffering. Again,
Focus on solutions, not suffering. Most suffering comes from replaying problems. Strong people replay solutions. Most people become experts at explaining why life is difficult. Strong people become experts at finding a way forward. That is the key. The direction of your focus determines the direction of your life. Where attention goes, energy flows. If attention stays on fear, fear grows. If attention stays on problems, problems grow. If attention stays on solutions, progress grows. Your mind follows what you repeatedly tell it. Remember that. Your mind follows what you repeatedly tell it. If every day you tell yourself life is unfair, your brain starts searching for evidence. If every day you tell yourself everything is falling apart, your brain starts collecting proof. If every day you tell yourself you are powerless, your actions begin reflecting that belief. But the opposite is also true. If every day you remind yourself that challenges can be handled, your brain starts looking for opportunities. If every day you remind yourself that you can learn, adapt, and improve, your confidence grows. If every day you remind yourself that stress is temporary, resilience grows. Your thoughts are training your brain every day, every hour, every minute. The question is simple. What are you teaching it? Many people spend years teaching themselves weakness without realizing it. They rehearse worst-case scenarios. They repeat negative stories. They focus on failures. They exaggerate problems. Then they wonder why they feel anxious. The answer is obvious, because the mind becomes what it practices. And if you practice fear, fear becomes stronger. If you practice calm, calm becomes stronger. Calm is a skill. Never forget that. Calm is a skill. Skills improve through repetition, not intention, not wishing, not hoping. Repetition. A musician becomes skilled through repetition. An athlete becomes skilled through repetition. A leader becomes skilled through repetition. And a calm mind is built through repetition. Every stressful situation becomes training. A delayed opportunity, a difficult conversation, a financial setback, a mistake, a disappointment. Each one gives you a chance to practice, a chance to pause, a chance to breathe, a chance to choose your response. And every time you choose wisely, you become stronger. Most people are waiting for stress to disappear. That day never comes. Life will always present challenges. There will always be uncertainty. There will always be pressure. There will always be obstacles. The goal is not to remove pressure. The goal is to become bigger than pressure. That changes everything. A storm that destroys a weak tree barely moves a strong one. The storm is the same. The strength is different. Life works the same way. The challenge is not always the problem. Your level of preparation is often the real issue. Stress exposes weaknesses.
That is why many people avoid challenges. Challenges reveal what needs improvement. Challenges expose bad habits. Challenges expose emotional weakness. Challenges expose lack of discipline. And that can be uncomfortable. But discomfort is a teacher, a powerful teacher, a necessary teacher. Without discomfort, growth rarely happens. Without challenge, strength rarely develops. Without pressure, resilience rarely forms. That is why every stressful moment contains a hidden opportunity, an opportunity to grow, an opportunity to improve, an opportunity to become stronger than you were yesterday. The question is whether you will use that opportunity or waste it. You have a choice. That is the key. Every day, every challenge, every setback, every stressful situation, you have a choice. You can complain or improve. You can panic or prepare. You can worry or work. You can surrender or strengthen yourself. The choice belongs to you, and the consequences belong to you as well. That truth can feel heavy, but it is also empowering. Because if your response creates much of your stress, then changing your response can reduce much of your stress. That means you are not trapped. That means you are not helpless. That means you can improve. That means you can grow. That means you can take control. And control begins with one simple habit: pause before reacting. Such a simple idea, yet most people never do it. Something happens, they react instantly. An email arrives, they panic. Someone criticizes them, they become angry. A problem appears, they assume disaster. Everything happens automatically. No pause, no reflection, no awareness, just reaction. And reaction creates regret. But when you pause, everything changes. The pause creates space. The space creates awareness. The awareness creates better decisions. That is why powerful people pause, not because they are slow, because they are disciplined. They understand that one emotional decision can create weeks of consequences.
So they pause, they breathe, they think, then they act. That is strength, not speed, strength. The next time stress appears, do something different. Pause. Take one slow breath, then another, then another. Allow the mind to slow down. Allow logic to return. Allow perspective to return. Because stress shrinks perspective. Stress makes problems appear bigger than they are. Calm restores perspective. Calm allows reality to return, and reality is usually less frightening than imagination. Think about how often people suffer from things that never happen. Days of worry, weeks of anxiety, months of fear, all because of imagined futures, not real events, imagined events. Stress often comes from imagined futures rather than present realities. That truth alone can change your life. Ask yourself, am I responding to reality right now, or am I responding to a story in my head? That question is powerful, because many fears exist only in imagination. Many worries exist only in imagination. Many disasters exist only in imagination. And imagination can be dangerous when left uncontrolled. That is why mental discipline matters. That is why awareness matters. That is why calm matters. Because a disciplined mind separates facts from fear. Facts create clarity. Fear creates confusion. And clarity is always more useful than confusion. Remember the mantra: I do not control every situation, but I control my response. Repeat it. Again, I do not control every situation, but I control my response. One more time. I do not control every situation, but I control my response.
Make that your standard. Make that your identity. Make that your daily reminder. Because the moment you truly believe it, stress begins losing its grip. Not all at once, but little by little, day by day, choice by choice, thought by thought, until one day you realize something powerful. The situations have not changed much, but you have. And because you changed, everything changed. That is how real transformation happens, not through one dramatic moment, but through thousands of disciplined decisions, one thought at a time, one response at a time, one challenge at a time. And that is how you build a mind that stress can no longer control.
Now understand something even deeper. Most people are exhausted not because life is hard. They are exhausted because they are carrying things they were never meant to carry. They carry yesterday's mistakes. They carry tomorrow's fears. They carry other people's opinions. They carry imaginary disasters. They carry guilt. They carry regret. They carry worry. And then they wonder why they feel overwhelmed. Of course they feel overwhelmed. They are carrying a mental backpack full of unnecessary weight. The problem is not always the challenge. The problem is often the mental load attached to the challenge. A small problem with a calm mind remains small. A small problem with an anxious mind becomes huge. That is why mastering your mind is not optional. It is essential. You cannot build a peaceful life with a chaotic mind. You cannot build confidence with constant self-doubt. You cannot build strength while feeding fear every day. Your mind is the foundation. Everything starts there. Everything. If the foundation is weak, the structure becomes unstable. If the foundation is strong, the structure can withstand storms. And life will bring storms. That is guaranteed. There will be losses. There will be setbacks. There will be disappointments. There will be moments when things do not go according to plan. That is life. The question is not whether storms will come. The question is who you become when they arrive. Do you become reactive or resilient? Do you become emotional or disciplined? Do you become fearful or focused? You have a choice. That is the key. The strongest people are not those who never struggle. The strongest people are those who refuse to let struggle define them. They refuse to surrender their peace. They refuse to surrender their focus. They refuse to surrender their discipline. Because they understand something important. Your peace is your responsibility. Not your boss's responsibility, not your family's responsibility, not society's responsibility, yours. That truth gives you power, because if your peace depends on everyone else behaving perfectly, you will never have peace. People will disappoint you. Situations will frustrate you. Plans will fail. Unexpected problems will appear. If your peace depends on those things never happening, peace becomes impossible. But if your peace depends on your response, peace becomes available every day. That is freedom. Real freedom. The freedom to remain calm even when circumstances are difficult. The freedom to think clearly when others panic. The freedom to stay focused when others become distracted. And that freedom is earned. It is built. It is trained. It is practiced, one choice at a time. Think about a business owner facing a difficult season. Sales are down, costs are rising, pressure is everywhere. Many people would panic. Many people would spend hours complaining. Many people would focus entirely on what is going wrong. And because their attention stays on the problem, their stress grows larger. But a disciplined business owner thinks differently. They ask better questions. What can I improve? What can I learn? What action can I take today? Notice the difference. The situation is still difficult. The pressure is still real. But the focus has changed. And focus changes outcomes. The disciplined mind searches for solutions. The undisciplined mind searches for reasons to panic.
Which one are you training? Because every day you are training one or the other. Every thought is practice. Every reaction is practice. Every response is practice. You are either strengthening fear or strengthening discipline. There is no neutral position. Your mind is always learning. Your mind is always adapting. Your mind is always becoming something. The question is, what is it becoming? A mind that collapses under pressure, or a mind that grows stronger because of pressure? Pressure is temporary. Remember that. Pressure is temporary. The situation that feels overwhelming today may be a memory next year. The challenge that keeps you awake tonight may not even matter 6 months from now. Yet people sacrifice their health, peace, and happiness over temporary problems. Why?
Because they forget that everything changes. Seasons change, circumstances change, opportunities change, challenges change, life changes. Nothing stays the same forever. Not success, not failure, not pain, not pressure. Everything moves, everything evolves, everything passes. That truth should comfort you, because if difficult seasons pass, then there is no reason to surrender during them. There is every reason to endure. There is every reason to stay disciplined. There is every reason to stay calm. Pressure is temporary, but the habits you build during pressure can last forever. That is why difficult seasons matter. They shape identity. A person who stays disciplined during hard times becomes stronger. A person who stays calm during uncertainty becomes wiser. A person who stays focused during pressure becomes powerful. Not because life became easier, because they became better. And becoming better is always within your control. You may not control the economy. You may not control other people. You may not control circumstances. But you can control improvement. You can control effort. You can control attitude. You can control response. That is where your power lives, not outside of you, inside of you. Many people spend years searching for control in the wrong places. They try to control every outcome, every situation, every person, every detail. And because life refuses to cooperate, they become stressed. Life is unpredictable. Accept that. People are unpredictable. Accept that. The future is uncertain. Accept that. Acceptance is not weakness. Acceptance is wisdom. Acceptance allows you to stop fighting reality. And once you stop fighting reality, you can start working with reality. That changes everything. Imagine standing in the ocean trying to stop the waves. Impossible. The waves keep coming. The harder you fight them, the more exhausted you become. Life works the same way. Certain things cannot be stopped. Certain things cannot be controlled. Certain things cannot be predicted. The wise person accepts that, then focuses on what can be controlled: their actions, their habits, their mindset, their response. That is where strength is found, not in controlling life, in controlling yourself. And self-control is one of the most valuable skills you will ever develop. Without self-control, stress controls you. Without self-control, emotions control you. Without self-control, circumstances control you. But with self-control, everything changes. You become stable. You become reliable. You become resilient. You become someone who can handle pressure without breaking. That is a powerful identity. And it is available to anyone willing to practice. Not just talented people, not just successful people, anyone, including you. But you must stop waiting. Many people are waiting for confidence before they act, waiting for motivation before they improve, waiting for perfect conditions before they begin. And while they wait, life moves forward.
The disciplined person understands something different. Action comes first. Confidence comes later. Discipline comes first. Results come later. Growth comes first. Transformation comes later. Waiting rarely creates progress. Action does. Even small action, especially small action. One calm breath, one disciplined thought, one practical decision, one focused action. These small choices seem insignificant, but they compound, just like stress compounds, just like fear compounds, just like habits compound. Everything compounds. That is why daily choices matter. Every day you either strengthen the habit of panic or strengthen the habit of calm. Every day you either train your mind to react or train your mind to respond. Every day you either move toward resilience or away from it. You have a choice. That is the key. Never forget that. You have a choice, even when life feels unfair, even when pressure feels overwhelming, even when circumstances seem impossible. You still have a choice. Maybe not about the event, but about your response, and that response has the power to change your future. Remember the mantra, I do not control every situation, but I control my response. Say it until it becomes part of you. Say it until it becomes automatic. Say it until your mind believes it. Because once your mind believes it, stress begins losing its authority. And when stress loses its authority, your true strength begins to emerge. The strength that was always there, waiting, growing, preparing, ready to be developed, ready to be disciplined, ready to be unleashed. And in the next part of this journey, you will discover how daily mental habits either feed stress or destroy it, and why the smallest habits often create the biggest transformations. Now ask yourself a difficult question. How much of your stress is actually coming from reality, and how much is coming from resistance? Most people never ask this question. They assume stress is being caused entirely by external circumstances. They blame the job. They blame the economy. They blame other people. They blame bad luck. Sometimes those things contribute, but often there is something deeper happening. Resistance. Resistance to reality. Resistance to uncertainty. Resistance to discomfort. Resistance to things not going exactly as planned. And resistance creates suffering. Think about it. When rain falls, you have two choices. You can accept the rain and adapt, or you can spend the entire day complaining about it. The rain remains the same. Your experience changes. The same principle applies to life. Many stressful situations become worse because people spend all their energy fighting what already exists. They argue with reality. They wish the past had been different. They wish circumstances were easier. They wish people behaved differently. But wishing does not change reality. Action changes reality. Adaptation changes reality. Growth changes reality. That is why acceptance is powerful. Acceptance does not mean giving up. Acceptance means seeing clearly. Acceptance means acknowledging what is. Acceptance means stopping the argument with reality. And once you stop arguing with reality, your energy becomes available for something useful: improvement, action, progress. That is the key. Many people are exhausted because they are fighting battles they cannot win. Battles against the past, battles against uncertainty, battles against facts. You cannot change yesterday. You cannot predict every tomorrow. You cannot control every outcome. Accept that, not with frustration, with wisdom, because wisdom saves energy, and energy is precious. Every day you wake up with a limited amount of mental energy. The question is simple: where are you spending it? On growth or worry? On action or fear? On solutions or suffering? because where your energy goes determines the quality of your life. Many people spend 90% of their energy worrying about things they cannot control. Then they wonder why they have no energy left for improvement. The answer is obvious. They spent it all.
That is why mentally strong people are selective. They protect their focus. They protect their attention. They protect their energy. Not because they are selfish, because they understand value. Attention is valuable. Energy is valuable. Time is valuable, and anything valuable must be protected. Stress grows when attention becomes scattered. Calm grows when attention becomes focused. That is why focus is a superpower. A focused mind is difficult to intimidate. A focused mind is difficult to overwhelm. A focused mind is difficult to distract because it knows exactly where to place attention and where not to. Most people allow every problem to enter their mind, every negative opinion, every criticism, every worry, every fear, every piece of bad news, everything gains access. Then they wonder why they feel overwhelmed. Imagine leaving your front door open 24 hours a day. Anyone could enter. Anything could enter. Chaos would eventually follow. The same thing happens mentally. If you allow every thought to enter and stay, mental chaos becomes inevitable. You must become the gatekeeper of your mind. You must decide what stays. You must decide what goes. You must decide what deserves attention and what does not. That responsibility belongs to you. Nobody else can do it for you. You have a choice. That is the key. Every thought knocks on the door, but you decide whether to invite it inside. A fearful thought appears. You can feed it or challenge it. A negative thought appears. You can believe it or question it. A stressful thought appears. You can obsess over it or redirect your focus. The choice belongs to you, always. And those choices shape your future. Not once, not occasionally, every day. The future is built through repeated decisions, small decisions, invisible decisions, mental decisions. That is why awareness matters so much. You cannot change what you do not notice. You cannot improve what you do not observe. You cannot master a mind you refuse to examine. Become aware. Notice your patterns. Notice your triggers. Notice what repeatedly creates stress. Notice what repeatedly creates calm. Awareness is where transformation begins. Most people live on autopilot, thought after thought, reaction after reaction, habit after habit, never questioning, never examining, never reflecting. And because they never examine their patterns, they keep repeating them, year after year. Imagine driving in circles and wondering why you never reach a destination. That is what happens when people repeat the same mental habits. Same worries, same fears, same reactions, same results. Nothing changes because nothing changes. Transformation requires awareness. Awareness creates choice. Choice creates change, and change creates growth. That sequence is powerful. Awareness, choice, change, growth. Never forget it. The moment you become aware of a destructive pattern, you gain power. Before awareness, the pattern controls you. After awareness, you can challenge it. That is freedom. A person who notices stress early can respond differently. A person who notices fear early can interrupt it. A person who notices negative thinking early can redirect it. But a person who never notices remains trapped. Awareness is the beginning of mastery, and mastery is built through repetition, not perfection.
Repetition. Many people quit because they expect perfection. They become stressed, they react poorly, they lose their patience. Then they assume they have failed. No, you are human. The goal is not perfection. The goal is improvement. The goal is progress. The goal is becoming slightly stronger than yesterday. That is enough. Small improvements create massive results over time. 1% better today, 1% better tomorrow, 1% better next week. Keep repeating that process and your life changes. The problem is that most people underestimate consistency. They want instant transformation, instant confidence, instant discipline, instant peace. Life does not work that way. A strong mind is built the same way a strong body is built. One workout at a time, one repetition at a time, one day at a time. Mental strength follows the same rule. One calm response, one disciplined decision, one focused action, repeated consistently. That is how resilience is built. And resilience is one of the greatest advantages you can possess, because life is unpredictable. The resilient person adapts. The resilient person recovers. The resilient person continues moving forward. Others stop. Others quit. Others become overwhelmed. But resilience keeps moving, not because it never struggles, because it refuses to stay down. That is a powerful distinction. Strong people fall. Strong people fail. Strong people make mistakes. Strong people experience stress, but they get back up again and again and again. That persistence eventually separates them from everyone else. Not talent, not luck, persistence. And persistence grows from mindset. A mindset that says, this challenge is temporary. This setback is temporary. This stress is temporary. Pressure is temporary. Repeat it. Pressure is temporary. Again, pressure is temporary. The difficult moment will pass. The stressful season will pass. The uncertainty will pass. And when it does, what will remain? Your habits, your character, your discipline, your mindset. That is why what you build during pressure matters so much. Pressure reveals who you are, but it also gives you an opportunity to become someone better. Every challenge asks a question. Who will you be now? Will you panic or pause? Will you complain or improve? Will you surrender or grow? You have a choice. That is the key. And every choice shapes identity. Eventually, you become the person your habits create, not the person your intentions imagine. That is why discipline matters. That is why focus matters. That is why emotional control matters. Because they are building your future self one decision at a time, one response at a time, one day at a time. And if you continue choosing calm over panic, if you continue choosing solutions over suffering, if you continue choosing discipline over emotion, stress begins losing its power, slowly, steadily, permanently, until one day you realize something remarkable. The situations that once controlled you no longer do. The problems that once overwhelmed you no longer overwhelm you. The fears that once dominated your thinking no longer dominate your mind. Because you changed. And when you change, your experience of life changes. That is the power of mastering your mind. That is the power of emotional discipline. That is the power of choosing your response. And that is why this truth must stay with you every single day. I do not control every situation, but I control my response. That is your power. That is your freedom. That is your path forward. There is another truth most people avoid. Stress loves uncertainty.
Not because uncertainty is dangerous, because uncertainty creates stories. And the human mind is a story-making machine. The moment information is missing, the mind fills in the gaps. The moment certainty disappears, imagination takes over. The moment answers are unavailable, assumptions begin. And unfortunately, most people do not imagine success. They imagine disaster. They imagine failure. They imagine rejection. They imagine loss. They imagine everything falling apart. That is why uncertainty feels so heavy, not because of what is actually happening, because of what the mind is creating. Think about how many times you worried about something that never happened. How many sleepless nights were spent on imaginary problems? How many stressful days were created by predictions that never came true? How much energy was wasted preparing for disasters that never arrived? Probably more than you realize. Most people do not suffer from reality, they suffer from imagination. That is a difficult truth, but it is an important one, because once you understand it, you can begin changing it. The next time uncertainty appears, stop yourself, pause, take a breath, then ask, what facts do I actually know? Not what you fear, not what you assume, not what you imagine. What facts do you know? That question creates stability. Facts ground you. Facts anchor you. Facts bring you back to reality. Fear pulls you into fiction. Reality is usually manageable. Fiction often feels overwhelming. That is why mentally strong people return to facts again and again. They refuse to build emotional reactions on assumptions. They wait, they observe, they think, then they act. That discipline protects them. Most people react first and think later. That habit creates unnecessary stress because emotional reactions often create bigger problems than the original situation. A difficult conversation becomes an argument. A small mistake becomes a major setback. A temporary challenge becomes a crisis, not because the situation demanded it, because emotions took control. Remember this, a lack of emotional discipline is expensive. It costs peace. It costs opportunities. It costs relationships. It costs confidence. And sometimes it costs years of progress. That is why emotional discipline is not optional. It is essential. Without it, stress becomes the leader. With it, you remain in control. You have a choice. That is the key. Every stressful situation presents two paths, the path of reaction or the path of response. The path of reaction is easy. Instant emotion, instant fear, instant panic, instant frustration. No thinking, no reflection, no awareness, just reaction. The path of response is harder. It requires patience. It requires discipline. It requires awareness. It requires self-control. But it creates far better results, always. The reaction feels good in the moment. The response feels good in the future. And successful people think about the future. They understand that temporary emotional relief often creates long-term problems, so they choose discipline again and again. That is why discipline beats motivation. Motivation comes and goes. Discipline remains. Motivation depends on feelings. Discipline depends on decisions. Motivation disappears during difficult times. Discipline continues working. And when stress arrives, discipline becomes priceless. Because stress rarely announces itself. It shows up unexpectedly. A phone call, an unexpected expense, a disappointing result, a difficult conversation, a sudden setback. Life changes quickly. And when it does, your habits take over, not your intentions, your habits. That is why building strong habits matters so much.
Under pressure, people do not rise to their expectations, they fall to their level of preparation. Think about that. Under pressure, people do not rise to their expectations, they fall to their level of preparation. If calm has been practiced, calm appears. If discipline has been practiced, discipline appears. If emotional control has been practiced, emotional control appears. But if panic has been practiced, panic appears. If worry has been practiced, worry appears. If fear has been practiced, fear appears. The mind follows training, always. So what are you training every day? That question matters, because every thought is practice. Every response is practice. Every habit is practice. Your future self is being trained right now, not tomorrow, today, this very moment. The way you think today affects who you become tomorrow. That is why mental discipline deserves your attention. Many people spend years improving external skills, career skills, technical skills, business skills, communication skills, all important, but they neglect the skill that affects every area of life: mental control. Without mental control, success becomes difficult to sustain, because every success brings new pressure, every opportunity brings responsibility, every level brings new challenges. If your mind cannot handle pressure, growth becomes painful. That is why the strongest investment you can make is in yourself, not just your knowledge, your mindset, not just your abilities, your emotional discipline, not just your skills, your resilience. Because resilience allows you to keep moving when others stop, and life rewards persistence, not perfection, persistence. The person who keeps going often wins, not because they are the smartest, not because they are the most talented, because they refuse to quit. And refusing to quit often begins with controlling stress. Stress convinces people to stop. Stress convinces people to retreat. Stress convinces people to abandon goals, not because the goal is impossible, because the pressure feels uncomfortable. But growth is uncomfortable, always. The gym is uncomfortable. Learning is uncomfortable. Improvement is uncomfortable. Discipline is uncomfortable. But discomfort is not danger. Remember that. Discomfort is not danger. Many people treat discomfort like an emergency. The moment something feels difficult, they assume something is wrong. No, difficulty is often a sign that growth is happening. The muscles burn because they are adapting. The mind struggles because it is expanding. The challenge feels uncomfortable because you are being stretched. That is normal. Do not fear it. Use it. Every stressful moment contains a lesson. Every challenge contains a lesson. Every setback contains a lesson. The question is whether you will look for the lesson or only focus on the pain. Most people focus on pain. Strong people focus on growth. That difference changes everything. Pain without learning becomes suffering. Pain with learning becomes progress. That is why perspective matters. The same event can create bitterness or wisdom. The same challenge can create weakness or strength. The same setback can create excuses or growth. The event is not the deciding factor. Your response is. And that brings us back to the most important lesson in this chapter. Your response is your power, not circumstances, not luck, not other people. Your response. That is where your freedom lives. That is where your strength lives. That is where your growth begins. Never underestimate the power of a controlled response. A controlled response can save a relationship. A controlled response can save a career. A controlled response can save years of progress. A controlled response can protect your peace. One moment of discipline can prevent months of regret. That is why awareness matters. That is why patience matters. That is why calm matters. Calm is not weakness. Calm is strength under control. Anyone can panic. Anyone can react. Anyone can lose control. But remaining steady when pressure rises, that is rare. That is powerful. That is leadership. And leadership begins with self-leadership. Before you can lead circumstances, you must lead yourself. Before you can manage challenges, you must manage your mind. Before you can control stress, you must control your response. That is the foundation. Everything else is built on top of it. So the next time stress appears, remember, pause, breathe, observe, think, respond. Not because it is easy, because it is effective. Not because it removes every problem, because it prevents unnecessary suffering. And unnecessary suffering is what destroys peace. Remember the principles. Control your thoughts, control your stress. Focus on solutions, not suffering. Calm is a skill. Pressure is temporary. Stress cannot control a disciplined mind. And above all, I do not control every situation, but I control my response. Repeat it until it becomes part of your identity. Repeat it until it becomes automatic. Repeat it until it becomes your default reaction to life. Because when that happens, stress loses one of its greatest weapons, its ability to control you. And when stress no longer controls you, a new version of you begins to emerge. Stronger, calmer, more focused, more resilient, more disciplined. The version of you that was always possible. The version that pressure was meant to reveal. As we close this chapter, remember one thing. Stress is not the enemy. An undisciplined mind is the enemy. The world will always contain pressure. There will always be deadlines. There will always be uncertainty. There will always be problems that demand your attention. That will never change. But you can change. That is the key. You can become stronger. You can become calmer. You can become more disciplined. You can become the person who remains steady when everyone else is losing control, not because life becomes easier, because your mind becomes stronger, and strength changes everything. Think about what you learned. Stress grows when you focus on problems instead of solutions. Fear grows when you feed it attention. Worry grows when you live in imaginary futures. But discipline grows when you practice calm. Confidence grows when you take action. Strength grows when you choose your response again and again, day after day, moment after moment. You have a choice. That is the key. You have a choice when pressure arrives. You have a choice when fear appears. You have a choice when life becomes difficult. You may not control the situation, but you always control your response, and your response determines your future. Never forget that. The people you admire are not free from stress. They simply refuse to become servants of it. They understand that emotions are temporary. Pressure is temporary. Fear is temporary. Challenges are temporary, but character lasts. Discipline lasts. Mental strength lasts. The habits you build today can serve you for the rest of your life. That is why every stressful moment matters. Every stressful moment is training. Every stressful moment is preparation.
Every stressful moment is an opportunity to strengthen your mind. Most people waste that opportunity. You don't have to. You can use it. You can grow from it. You can become stronger because of it. And one day, you will look back and realize something remarkable. The situations that once broke your focus no longer affect you. The problems that once stole your peace no longer control you. The fears that once dominated your thoughts no longer have power over you. Because you changed. Because you trained. Because you chose discipline over emotion, again and again. That is transformation. Real transformation. Not overnight, not instantly, but through thousands of small decisions, thousands of moments where you chose calm instead of panic, focus instead of fear, action instead of worry. That is how powerful people are built. And now there is one final message I want you to carry with you. A message that should follow you into every challenge, every setback, every difficult season ahead. Repeat it. Say it slowly. Believe it. Live it. I do not control every situation, but I control my response. Again, I do not control every situation, but I control my response. One last time. I do not control every situation, but I control my response. Make that your standard. Make that your identity. Make that your way of life. Because when you master your response, you master your stress. When you master your stress, you master your mind. And when you master your mind, you begin to master your life. Now take that lesson forward, because in the next chapter, we will go deeper into the daily habits, routines, and mental disciplines that turn temporary calm into permanent inner strength. The journey is just beginning.